the Vision Zero plan for no one to be killed or seriously injured on London streets by 2041. So yeah, I was thinking, how is this plan evolving, and what's the role of connected technologies in delivering this ambition?
So yes, no, as you say, we've adopted the safe systems approach in London, which is aiming to eliminate deaths and serious injuries from our roads by 2041, and that's based on the kind of 5 key pillars of safe speeds, safe behaviours, safe streets, safe vehicles, and post-collision response. And we're really clear that that needs to be a data-led process. So it needs to be responsive to evolving conditions on the roads. And we also need to be able to kind of tell that what we're doing works by what's happening in terms of the longer term trends. So, for example, the 2021 progress report that we've just published, it talks about how we're responding to the kind of uptick in motorcycles, particularly driven by the gig economy and the food delivery economy. It also talks about the kind of e-scooter trials in London and the kind of other kind of emerging trends along those bases, on those kind of lines. But I think the safer vehicles one is really interesting here in terms of the context of what people have been talking here about technologies. So we know that kind of technologies are in many ways making reducing road danger harder. So we've stopped seeing the longer term decline in car use in London, and partly that's due to things like the ride-hailing services, meaning that there are kind of though there's less private car use, there's more kind of private hire use. We also know that cars are getting bigger and heavier, and in the short term, we've also seen the emergence of e-scooters on the roads. We've seen a great big uptick in cycling coming out of the pandemic, which is really good news. And we've also seen more motorcycles on the roads driven by things like delivery economy. That's kind of what we're seeing in the short term in London. But then there are kind of some real opportunities represented by technological change too. So we've worked with Daimler and you'll have probably seen this kind of work in other forums, to understand road risk using connected vehicle sensors. And so what that was using their kind of in-car vehicle sensors to build a kind of picture across all of their fleet, to understand discrepancies in like where they was flagging near miss events. And so what that allowed us to do was identify discrepancies between what our internal modelling was telling us was the most kind of dangerous areas in London and where we were seeing lots of near misses, because we think that a near miss should be a kind of reasonable predictive element of whether you might get a kind of a death or a serious injury too. It also identified areas and risks that we previously lacked intelligence on, and because it was Daimler and Mercedes-Benz, we discovered that the back of Harrods is apparently full of near misses. And it also kind of gave us a value for kind of the longer term ambition of this, is that we have leading data, not lagging data. So we're not waiting to see someone killed, seriously injured or slightly injured in a major collision before we act. So we really hope to be able to kind of say, if we can have near miss data, then we don't need to wait for someone to be injured to know that there is a problem at that area. So it really is kind of very kind of hopeful, and it could really bring us a sea change in the way that we think about road danger reduction, which I think is really positive. So there's some really kind of valuable opportunities here, but obviously the thing is, how can we integrate and build on that work, but also how can we move from just working with one manufacturer to building a kind of a wider view that looks across all vehicles that are out on the roads, all of which have their own internal sensors on, to kind of actually build this kind of better, wider public good, I think.